Tonight on Lead Story, a $500 million withdrawal from the Financial Services Commission is sparking a political firestorm. The government insists the FSC remains financially sound, but the opposition says the move raises serious questions about the regulator's financial health and the justification for increased fees. Also tonight, Jamaica has recorded more than 150 police fatal shootings since the start of this year. Are we witnessing effective law enforcement, or is there a growing human rights concern that demands urgent attention? And later, Justice Minister Delroy Chuck says Jamaica has no human rights problem and is pushing once again for the country's final appellate court to come home. But the opposition isn't convinced. We examine the future of the Republican reform push, the CCJ debate, and the state of human rights in Jamaica. I'm Tyrone Reed, sitting in for Jody and Quarry, and this is Lead Story. The government is defending its decision to withdraw $500 million, that's $500 million, from the Financial Services Commission, the FSC. Finance Minister Favor Williams says the move was made only after careful assessment, she says, of the FSC's financial position and will have no impact on the regulator's operations or long-term viability. According to the minister, self-financing agencies with surplus resources are sometimes asked to distribute excess reserves to support government revenue requirements. She maintains that the FSC's balance sheet remains strong and that the government stands ready to provide financial support should the commission require it. But the opposition is asking tough questions. Opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson, argues that the decision is difficult to reconcile with the FSC's current effort to increase regulatory fees on insurance companies and other entities under its oversight. The issue gained attention after FSC Executive Director, Lieutenant Colonel Karen Burrell, disclosed that the transfer was one of several factors impacting the Commission's financial position. The debate now centers on a fundamental question. If the FSC is financially strong, why are fees going up? And if the FSC is under financial pressure, why was $500 million removed? Joining us now to discuss this matter, this pressing issue, is the opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson. Top of the evening to you, Julian Robinson. Welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening to you, Tyrone, and good evening to your listeners and your viewers.
All right, we're barely hearing Julian Robinson. Just to ensure that the viewers are. Can you hear us again, Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Are you hearing me?
Wonderful. We're hearing you much better now. Okay. What's the position here, Julian Robinson? Because we were told in Parliament by the FSC that there's a need to increase fees on the one hand, and then on the other hand, the government has raided the kitty of the FSC for $500 million.
Well, I think you need to listen to what the head of the FSC said in Parliament. He said that the $500 million, the government taking $500 million, has had a material negative impact on the FSC, which has necessitated the FSC raising fees on insurance companies. Now, it's important to note that this is not an abstract discussion. When the FSC raises fees on insurance companies are simply going to pass on those costs to their end users. So if you're in the business of insuring your house or your car, you're going to see increased rates. You're probably going to have increased rates anyway because of the hurricane and reinsurers, but you're going to have a compounding effect. So if you listen to what Mr. Burrell said, he said this in fact had a negative impact. So for the minister to come out now and say, oh, it has had no impact on the FSC and the FSC in a strong position, she is directly contradicting what Mr. Burrell said in Parliament 2 weeks ago.
So where do you plan to take this, escalate this matter to as the opposition spokesman,
We're going to continue to press it because the government is not being honest about the state of the finances of the country. What is happening is that the government is raiding all of these institutions. We see it with the NHT, the $11.4 billion. I'm told the Heart Trust over $2 billion have been withdrawn from the Heart Trust over 2 years. So basically what it is doing, because the economy is not growing, because tax revenues are not moving at the pace the government wants, and we have had 2 negative quarters of economic growth, mainly driven by the hurricane. But the reality is that we have not seen the growth in tax revenues. The government is basically raiding these, what you might call these statutory corporations, taking their cash, putting them in a difficult position. And in this particular case, the FSC now is going to be raising rates. Now, what you need to understand with the way the FSC is funded, the rates are based on a percentage of the assets of the company. So as insurance companies grow over time, that figure increases. So if the FSC is in a sound position, there is no need to raise rates, because as insurance companies grow, as their assets grow, they will collect more fees. So it is a direct result, as was said by Mr. Burrell, the 500 million withdrawal has put it in a difficult position, and it is forced to raise rates. So the government is doing 2 things. It is imperiling the position of the FSC, and then by raising the rates, those costs are going to be passed on to consumers who are already burdened with gas price increases, food price increases. Now you're going to pay more to insure your house and your car and the contents.
Julian Robinson, what are your sources telling you about the government's liquidity? Is the government strapped for cash?
The government, it must be. If you remember now, we had a hurricane, which had a big impact, a significant fall off. You have had now 2 quarters of negative growth. If your tax revenues are not increasing or at the pace of your expenses, and remember, you have fixed expenses. You have to pay salaries, you have to pay down your debt. You can't just reduce the services that government offers. You have to find the monies from somewhere. That is why the government had to implement a tax package. And we have seen since the implementation of the tax package that they are now going after Airbnbs, which were not originally part of the tax package in April. So the government is, in my view, clearly looking for funding to ensure that they can pay their bills. And so they're going to all of these entities, they see some cash, they take the cash, but then it puts the entity in a difficult position to honor its mandate. So in the case of Heart Trust, I'm told over $2 billion over the last 2 years. That means that programs that should be rolled out for young people, that is going to be impacted. And now in the case of FSC has to raise rates. In the case of NHT, $11.4 billion a year, which should be building houses for working Jamaicans who are so desperately in need of affordable housing. So we are seeing it is not a one-off. It is a pattern across a number of these state-owned entities where the government is basically raiding the bar to pay its bills.
I hear you mention the Airbnb sector. Is the PNP as a policy position opposed to bringing the Airbnb sector into the tax net?
I wouldn't say opposed from a policy perspective, but the question is, how do you do it? Let me just give some background. Last year, the tourism minister, Ed Bartlett, brought a bill to Parliament to make amendments to the Tourism Act, which in my view was aimed at regulating Airbnbs. And was, in our view, a precursor to the taxing of Airbnbs. After much outcry, they abandoned that. Now, in this case, the government didn't come up front as one of the tax measures and indicate that this was going to be done. At 2 a.m., after the long debate on NARA, the minister tabled some amendments to the tax bill. It didn't say anything about Airbnbs, but when I looked at it, I saw a category called Other. And I asked her, I said, what is this category? And that is when she acknowledged it. Now, that's not the way if you're going to impose taxes on a sector, that's the way to do it. It's like Nicodemus in the middle of the night. You should sit with the sector, indicate what your plans are, indicate why they should be taxed. Now, remember, people who have Airbnbs, if you're an individual, you should be paying taxes when you file your annual declarations. And the fact is, Airbnbs and hotels do not operate on the same footing because hoteliers, large hotels, benefit from a lot of tax relief. which small Airbnb operators don't. So it's actually not a level playing field. But the way the government did it, I said, is absolutely wrong. There was zero consultation with the industry, and I think in my view, there was pressure from the larger hotels who are facing competition from the Airbnbs to impose these taxes.
If we can go back to the meat of the matter, why we invited you here today, Julian Robinson, in an Observer article, when the FSC and its bosses went to the nation's parliament in April. A line in this report from the Observer says, we have used more reserves, so we are making a loss currently. The loss is not only due to one sector, of course, but we're making a loss of over 500 million, and 200 million comes from the insurance sector. That's what came from the FSC, Julian Robinson. It does appear, though, that they're saying they do have reserves. They do have reserves. Does that give you any amount of comfort? They're saying they have reserves.
Yeah, but I'm saying if they're making a loss, losses have to be funded by reserves, right? So when you take away 500 million from them, they are now forced to increase their rates, because that's why you have reserves in it. And if you take a business, in the normal course of business, you're going to have good years where you're making good profits, but you're going to have bad years where you may make a loss or two. And then your reserves will cover your losses.
I have about 30 seconds. Do you know was it tabled along with, in Parliament, was it mentioned in Parliament what the reserves, the total amount of the reserves?
No, that was not said. But as I said, Mr. Burrell has indicated that taking 500 million is going to negatively impact the operations of the FSC to the extent that they have to raise fees.
More answers needed on this one. But Julian Robinson, opposition spokesman on finance, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. Well, viewers, that is where we have to take our first break on this TGIF edition of Lead Story. I'm Tyrone Reid. We'll be back after these.
To develop state-of-the-art security solutions like our new Total Connect smart home automation system that gives you 24/7 access to control your appliances, lights, cameras, and doors using your smartphone, tablet, or PC. As the most trusted electronic security company in Jamaica, Hawkeye has the fastest response times to get to you when you need us most. Trust Hawkeye's Total Connect. Hawkeye, securing what matters most.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard, and the music keeps on playing, and the people never say we are mash up the dance. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights
Welcome back to Lead Story. I'm Tyrone Reid. Now, Jamaica has recorded 153 fatal shootings involving members of the security forces since the start of the year. According to the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, 14 of those fatalities occurred in the first days of June alone. The figures have once again sparked a national debate about the use of deadly force. police accountability, and the balance between public safety and human rights. Supporters of the security forces argue that officers continue to operate in high-risk environments against heavily armed criminals. Others believe the numbers warrant greater scrutiny and oversight. So what do these figures really tell us? And what should the country be asking about the circumstances surrounding these incidents? Joining us now are Jamaicans for Justice Executive Director, that's Michael Jackson, and Dr. Gavin Myers of the National Integrity Action, NIA. Top of the evening to both of you. Welcome to Lead Story.
Good afternoon, good evening actually. Happy to be here with you, Sir Tyrone and Gavin.
Hello.
All right, let's begin with you. We've been down this road before, Michael Jackson. We've been having these conversations. Your organization has been at the vanguard of these conversations publicly about trying to raise an alarm about the number of police fatal shootings and the increase that we've been noticing in recent times. Just give me your general reaction to the numbers that you just heard in the last few days alone.
The numbers are quite alarming for us at JFJ, and we have been sounding this alarm from about 2023 when we realized that the numbers have seen a significant upward tick. I want the country to put in context. We're a relatively small country. That's the first thing. So you look at population size relative to the number of people who were killed. That's what you look at. The other thing that you examine as well is the reality that when you look at a 65% increase compared to last year, 189 increased to 311. Tyrone, listeners, the last time Jamaica saw such a high number in the 300s was in 2010. Let that sink in for you. 2010, that was the year that Indicom was established. We had 307 people killed that year, and then 2025, we recorded 311. When we look at the year to date, that 153 that you mentioned was as at June 10. When you look at the comparative period of June 10, 2025, the numbers were at 145. So already we are seeing where in 2026, if the trend continues, we may very well exceed 2025, which when I put in perspective was the highest we've seen in nearly 15 years. Now, some people may say that criminals are having high-powered weapons and so on. We agree. If the police come in conflict with any criminal and they are, put under attack, then common sense and law demands that the police protect themselves and other civilians. But here is the rub. We are seeing conflicting accounts in a number of these incidents. For example, just today we spoke to a mother who, according to her, she was removed from the room when the police kicked down the door at after 4 a.m. in the morning. She was removed from the room. The two children, according to her, witnessed the killing of their father. And you have several reported incidents like these where there's conflicting account between the police officers and that of civilian. And it's because of those circumstances we have to raise the alarm to ask ourselves, where were the body cameras during these operations? Why were CCTV cameras pulled down by police officers, the Romario Sterlings and the Jamar Farkinsons? So we have to put the scrutiny when it is that we have these types of conflicting accounts happening in a high rate of police killings.
I hear you there, Michael Jackson. Gavin Myers, let me hear your take on this. The numbers concerning for you as well.
The numbers is concerning, but even more, the process is even more concerning. You know, if we look at a comparison, just using this example, our road safety crashes last year was just over 300, I think 300 and high 300s, and it was worrying. Last year, the police killed close to 300, over 300 persons too. And just that comparison alone should make us scared and worried, because we are doing things to reduce the number of road safety incidents, collisions that are happening, but yet still we are supposed to be calm to and ambivalent to the deaths that are happening by the hands of the police? No. But even more than that, if it is that our police that we train so well are being faced with such type of situation generally on a daily basis, then we have to wonder, one, what type of training that we need to do better to reduce this, and two, how is it that we're going to shift the conversation away from this violent approach to other approaches. I just like to see it from a point of view that there's something wrong and something that is going egregiously wrong overall in how our policing is happening and the tolerance that we have for the type of violent approach to policing that is happening.
You mentioned the Jamar Farquharson case, Michael Jackson. This is the case involving the young man who surrendered at his door, and it was captured on CCTV, right, Michael?
Yes. And there was another case that JFJ is supporting, Tyrone, which is the Romario Sterling case. Similarly, and I want to say this before I even give an account of that. These cases, or what is shown on CCTV footage, is a snippet. It's just a few minutes, so we don't know exactly what fully occurred, but it still causes us to raise questions. So if you look at both Jamar Farquharson and Romario Sterling, both men were seen seemingly compliant with the police's command. Jamar had his hands raised up. Romario Sterling actually was knelt down with his hands behind his head. The question is, with the training that our officers have received, and you have more than one officers at the scene, one must ask, what could have reasonably happened? Why it is that several officers are there and this individual wasn't placed with handcuffs or otherwise restrained? That would have led from someone seemingly compliant that resulted in them killed afterwards. And why were the CCTV cameras pulled down in both instances? Because remember with Romario Sterling, the CCTV camera was pulled down, but it was because it was recorded to the cloud. Why is it that we happen to see some aspects of that footage? And that must be scary for all of us. What is happening in these cases? And the cases that we've seen murder charges being laid or seeing some outrage from the public was as a result of video evidence. So the question is, how many more of those cases exist where one can say something is not right in this particular incident? Was unlawful force utilized?
All right, so I hear you wanted to come in on that, Gavin Maris, on those cases. Let me hear you on it before I try to drill down into some of the
with Jamar, yes. And even with Jamar, even more the officers. Jamar was so successful in moving that he dug through a closed basket to find a weapon that was concealed there. There's something incredulous about their approach, about the information being shared, and it diverges both from what witnesses say, but also from just a lived reality. So this type of approach that is being offered, this type of information that's being said, it's tiring. And if you look at the last situation down in retirement, the entire situation just seems off from the evidence that is being presented, and even more from the eyewitness accounts of people who are speaking to what the incident that they saw around the situation was happening.
Completely thought something seems off. I'm sorry. No, completely thought, Gavin.
Now, since something is off, the people in the community speak more about the situation that or the circumstances that they saw overall. And I'm not saying that they saw everything, but the one person who could speak otherwise is dead, and the officers are sharing and a view that just doesn't add up in terms of what the evidence is there for us to raise. And even more than that, the evidence of the inability of the state to offer credible reason why we haven't used the tools that are within our purview to capture the data is problematic at best.
All right, now, Michael Jackson, Gavin Myers, before we get to the broader issue, and I put to you what those who don't necessarily see it from your perspective have been arguing. The Jamar Farquharson shooting, for example, killing Michael Jackson, took place when?
That was last year, September 2025.
So September 2025, we see him on video stepping outside the house, surrendering to the police, only to be told that he was brought back inside. He reached for a gun that was in the house, and he was...
I was hidden in a clothes basket.
And he was killed. September 2025. We are now in June 2026. In the incident in Granville, where that woman was shot by the police behind her steering wheel, we see where that police officer has been slapped with charges and also denied bail. That happened rather swiftly. Is a part of the problem the time it takes to get to what really happened, particularly when we have video evidence, Michael Jackson, to support the cases, because we have the CCTV footage. It was CCTV footage that helped in the Montego Bay incident. Why is the Jamar Farquharson case still outstanding?
And that's the issue, because not only is Jamar Farquharson outstanding, but also Romario Sterling with those CCTV footage. No, the court of law and before the prosecutors perhaps would agree to charges, there may be other things at play. It could be...
Michael Jackson, I'm going to ask you just to hold that thought for me. I'm being told I need to take this break. Just hold the thought right there. We take the break right here and come back with more on Leach Story. We're talking about police fatal shootings. Are they justified? The increase, yes? Should we be concerned? More after these.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Popeyes have this new barbecue chicken sandwich there. Crispy barbecue chicken breast fillet, crunchy pickles, and Popeyes signature sauce. And the buns, buttery brioche. Oh my god, water.
It's new Popeyes chicken sandwich with barbecue. Well, delicious barbecue right through. It's finally here. Popeyes barbecue chicken sandwich available everywhere. Popeyes has the new barbecue chicken sandwich.
Barbecue with a hot attitude.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Welcome back. This is Leach Story. I'm Taryn Reid. Now, the discussion about fatal police shootings is ultimately a discussion about public trust. While many Jamaicans want a strong response to crime, they also expect transparency, fairness, and accountability. The question is whether the country has found the right balance. How should incidents involving deadly force be investigated? What role should INDICOM play? And how can confidence in both law enforcement and the justice system be strengthened? We are continued with their presence here by the JFJ's Executive Director, Michael Jackson, and of course, Dr. Gavin Myers of the National Integrity Action. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us.
Thank you so much.
Let's go back to that, because among the questions, one which we did mention there, but we were touching on before the break, Michael Jackson, is the length of time. It seems as if justice is being delayed in too many of these cases, particularly when we have video evidence. When you see it, being done with dispatch in one case and not so much in another. And we're talking about, in particular, that Jamar Farquharson case that you said took place in September 2025.
So, without speaking to the specifics, I want us to look at perhaps the circumstances generally, wherein what the CCTV footage or video evidence gives us when you see the actual murder on camera. And the evidence threshold. So in those particular instances, perhaps the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution would be able to decipher whether or not there was imminent threat to the lives of the police or any other civilian that may have justifiably led to the murder or the killing occurring. And if it is that they don't see enough to substantiate the arguments proffered by the police involved, then it may very well lead to a murder charge. In other incidents, while there are snippets caught on CCTV, remember the actual killing was never seen on camera. And the only other person that could give a counter to the police's account of events is dead. So therefore, this is the importance again of the body-worn cameras, because if it is that we saw video evidence of the actual killing, then we would be able to decipher whose account of events is factual. The other elements that would give evidence outside of the video evidence and the witness statement, in which there is none outside of the police, would be forensic and the ballistics reporting and so on. And there are challenges there with the length of time that these things will take. Which brings to the question about how impunity may continue as a result of these gaps. When you have a lengthy time with ballistics reports and so on, and then witnesses are fearful of coming forward, the lack of witness statements, which is a part of the evidentiary material, is not readily available, that would be able to proffer charges in a timely manner. Which is why, again, we call for the body cameras.
Absolutely. And I support the call for the body cameras, and I get the most right-thinking Jamaicans do. But you did say that JFJ is lending support in this particular case with Jamar Farquharson, and also the one with
Romario Sterling.
Not Jamar Farquharson. So no. What is causing the delay in the Romario Sterling matter, Michael Jackson?
We wrote to Indicom to get an update, but we have not yet gotten that. But that is something that we're following up on, because Romario Sterling happened, I believe, in about May or June 2024, and nothing as yet.
And when did you write to Indicom?
A few times since the killing on behalf of the family.
And the last time?
I can't readily say.
You can't read, all right. Do you find Indicom to be particularly responsive as I bring Gavin Myers in? Do you find them as responsive? Do you find that the investigations move as swiftly as they should?
No, not at the pace that we would want, but we do not necessarily offer the view that it is as a result of Indicom, but rather the realities that Indicom would be facing in terms of the lack of the witness statements. Remember, Indicom depends on the same forensic unit that would be supporting, the wider law enforcement. So it's not necessarily as a result of Indicom's actions or inactions, but rather the realities that Indicom
resource
would
constraints.
be.
Do you think Indicom deserves its own forensics apparatus?
I'm not sure if they need their own, or if it is that we just need to improve upon what we have so that the forensic generally in the country can be improved. And we've heard statements from the Minister of National Security about that, but we're not seeing the type of resources and obviously the timeline and so on to give us what we want.
All right,
but it's not just the forensic, it's also the witness statements and the fear of people coming forward because of the allegations that the same police officers sometimes will be driving around in the communities for intimidation tactics, according to the civilians.
You've heard those reports?
Yes, even in Latoya Bulgin's case, we got those reports from the
Latoya Bulgin,
Dr. Gavin Myers has been chomping at the bit. Come in here, Dr. Gavin Myers. You too have heard those reports?
I was supporting, I've heard those reports, but even more than hearing those reports, the connections that the community make in terms of that. But also, there have also been suggestions that even when there's a charge, the timeline that the police take in terms of moving has also slowed. And we can use the example that cases seem to go slow when the police are involved. And along with that, just a general feeling that there is impropriety, the general feeling that these people are above the law continues. And we don't want that, because the more that seeps in, the harder it is for us to build the trust of the community. And we're talking about, we want active citizens. We're not looking, even though policing is an important part of community safety, the community itself has to feel safe to reach out to the police and feel that the police works with them and engages with them. And if that isn't felt, then we have an impasse that criminals may take control over, and you're trying to avoid that.
Staying with you though, Gavin Myers, because the pushback is, that entities like the NIA and the JFJ are fear-mongering, because they're just saying, whoa, look at the numbers, they are so high, and they're not taking into consideration whether or not most of these people who are shot and killed by the police were in fact armed, whether or not a shootout actually took place. They're saying without more, you can't be raising an alarm without more. Yes, there are individual cases that you need to raise an alarm about, but to generally say that human rights excesses are taking place without more, they're saying that is irresponsible. How do you respond, Dr. Gavin Myers?
If I see a boardhouse, there is heat and there is smoke, and I don't see the flame, I'm still going to call fire. And I'm saying that because we have to be careful at those people who are within the police force or within the seats of power who are saying that we should wait. Wait on what? What evidence apart from Jamal Parkinson? What evidence apart from Romario Sterling? What evidence apart from Camus Clark? What evidence apart from what the citizens in the different communities are saying do we need to speak out? Why is it that we are waiting for someone else to tell us how it is that we feel and for us to speak out? Why are we waiting for someone else to tell us that or give us permission to speak out? I want Jamaica to work, I really do have really good relationship with and want better relationship with the police, but because I give them so much credit, I want them to be better and continue giving me all the confidence. If even one mistake happens and that can spoil everything, I don't want that. I trust my police too much for them to even be badly thought of by some persons. I want all persons to espouse confidence in them because they see them as having authority, as being just, and following the law. I don't know of any law in Jamaica that gives the police the right to carry out execution or to execute just any form of judicial action on the streets. I want my police, when they are working, to work in the best interest of all, and that we have a better Jamaica.
Let me get you on that, Michael Jackson, because many are saying the alarm you're raising isn't grounded in facts and data. It's grounded in supposition.
We can look at it two ways. The matters go before the courts, if they even reach the courts, and it's very few. Less than 5% of these cases will advance to charges being laid, and then another 1% in terms of prosecutions getting underway, and so on. So the numbers are low. Others have argued that it's low because somehow the police have found not to be at fault, and that's not the case. When you have witnesses either leaving the country, in some instances the police themselves have left the country, witnesses being fearful, witnesses saying that they have been intimidated, then obviously the case will fall through. When you have only the account of the police officer, obviously the case will fall through because there's no independent account of what would have happened. The question I will also ask people, including government members who have championed that we have Indicom, do they remember how Indicom got here? Let's look at Caroline Gomes, Susan Goff, Carol Narcisse, and others through the same Jamaica Labour Party government. wherein the killing of Michael Gale, where the prosecutor decided not to prosecute, and the bravery of Jenny Cameron, Michael Gale's mother, who spurred JFJ then into action to take the matter to the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, who found the state to be at fault and who recommended that Jamaica establishes an independent oversight body. Those cases led to INDECOM being established. So the role of human rights organization is to raise an alarm, because when a mother comes in front of me, as I sat in front of a family member a couple days ago, who broke down in tears in the office recounting how brave her brother was, how good of a citizen her brother was, who gave back to the Grand Spend community and who was killed by the state, right? When I listen to those mothers and I listen to the girlfriend of the man who was killed, whose children right now, JFJ will have to be supporting the family to get psychological counseling for that family. Those individuals are who we're guided by.
But Michael Jackson, just to push back a bit again, because we're saying so far this year, there have been 153 police fatal shootings. How many
of them gone to court already?
One of which the officer has been charged for murder.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So, and out of that, you say one so far has a charge of murder.
Yes.
And many Jamaicans are saying, look, if you're raising an alarm, it has to be grounded in fact. It has to be grounded in data, or you know, we can be sending the wrong message, because the truth is, after all of these cases have been investigated, you might not have another one that results in a charge in murder. So would the raising of the alarm been in vain, Michael Jackson, Gavin Myers?
No, because what we look at is a couple of things, Tyrone. The conflicting accounts that we've gotten from citizens. So we mentioned, for example, the Romario Sterling. We're guided by INDECOM's own report, that special investigation report that INDECOM released last year, that also has the same scenarios that I mentioned. Keep in mind, Tyrone, that if a firearm is also found at the scene, it doesn't necessarily suggest that the person who was killed actually fired that weapon.
Absolutely.
In fact, INDECOM went out of its way in that report to give an indication of that very issue. There's no gun residue sometimes on the person's hands and no indication that the person ever fired the weapon. And because of that, JFJ's position is this: we're not making any absolute statement. And since I've been here, I have never once said that these killings are extrajudicial. I have chosen my words carefully to say that based on the circumstances, the continued conflicting accounts, it is enough for us to have greater scrutiny on these matters. That have been my concern.
And I gather you share a similar view. I think we have to leave it there. I'll give you the last word, Gavin Myers, yes?
Read back the 2010 report on the Tivoli incursion and read back the witness statements on how the police and soldiers acted after. Just read back that. Anybody who wants to talk about us calling them out. We're canaries in the coal mine.
All right, Dr. Gavin Myers there of the NIA, and of course Michael Jackson of the JFJ. The police, they have a tough job, but that video of Jamar Farquharson surrendering outside of his house, yes, it raises serious questions for the security forces, and we'll continue to watch that one. Lady, gentlemen, thank you so much for making Lead Story. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you always. Bye-bye.
Indeed. This is Lead Story. We are up on our final break. We'll come back with more.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us inside this DJF edition of Lead Story. Now, the government is once again pushing to advance constitutional reform. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck is urging parliamentarians to support making Jamaica's final appellate court a regional one through the Caribbean Court of Justice. Well, actually, the minister says that he doesn't have a problem with a number of judges from the CCJ sitting here in Jamaica, but it has to be a Jamaican final appellate court. That's the position he espoused in Parliament while on his feet. As the country's Republican reform process remains stalled, though, at the center of the debate is whether the move to a republic should be completed at the same time as the transition from the Privy Council to the CCJ or a final appellate court right here in Jamaica. But the minister has also generated controversy with another assertion. During a sectoral debate presentation, Delroy Chuck declared that Jamaica does not have a human rights problem. He pointed to the existence of the public defender and other institutional safeguards as evidence that rights are being protected. Critics, however, have pointed to issues including police fatal shootings, which have been increasing, access to justice, conditions of detention, and other concerns. We are hoped to be joined in this segment by opposition spokesperson on justice, Zulika Jess. And we have been trying to make contact with Zulika Jess. She did commit to being with us, and we are hoping to be with her in a few moments. But absolutely, a question for discussion, viewers. Does Jamaica have a human rights record? That is the question that we need to ask. There are people who are advancing that we can't just take the increase in police fatal shootings to mean that the police are actually carrying out extrajudicial killings. And of course, that is something that ought to be considered. It's not an unreasonable position to offer. Those cases must be investigated, and of course the chips should be allowed to fall where they may. But also on the side of those who are seeking to raise an alarm, they're saying they can't just sit on the sidelines and not say anything and say, look, there is a matter here that warrants public attention and public scrutiny. And that is also impatient of debate in terms of it being a reasonable position. And two things can be true at the same time. Yes, there can be cause to say, look, the numbers are going up. We need to pay attention here. Additional scrutiny should be provided. Absolutely a position to offer. We are now being joined by the opposition spokesperson on justice, no stranger to the program here, Zulika Jess. She joins us now. Thank you so much, Council, for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening to your listeners and your viewers.
Good evening to you again. So, Council, tell us, why do you think the minister is off the mark by saying Jamaica does not have a human rights problem?
Well, quite frankly, I was a little bit amazed as I sat in Parliament and heard the minister utter those words, because I wondered whether the minister is aware of recent happenings in the country. I wonder whether the minister would have seen the video that was circulating online regarding Latoya Bulgin, the clinical execution of a citizen right before our very eyes that led the office of the DPP to actually recommend that the officer in question be charged with
Counsel,
murder.
I might ask that, and I'm certain that you might be aware of this, being a learned counsel. Can we describe it as an execution and the court hasn't determined the matter, is it?
Well, as I indicated before, this is a matter that led the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to actually recommend that charges for murder be laid against the officer in question.
But you haven't answered me. We have to address it because you have said it. Can we describe it as an execution and the matter has not been determined by the court?
Well, we are not in a court of law at present. What we are talking about is what we, the ordinary citizens, have seen with our own two eyes. And I would like to think that there are many Jamaicans out there who watched the video, who saw the moves that were undertaken, and are also of the similar view that that was street side execution. That was not a shooting that many Jamaicans would regard as justified.
But as an officer of the court, Ms. Jess, and I must ask you again, can we so pronounce on the matter before the court has determined?
The court will determine whether or not the officer is guilty of murder. The court of public opinion is perfectly free to indicate that what they saw, what I saw, looks like street side execution to us.
So it looks like it is different from saying it is. So all right, so you can continue making your point. We've cleared that up because we have to protect ourselves in this matter as well. And also be fair to the people who are involved. But you're saying this issue speaks volumes to the fact that Jamaica has a human rights problem.
But not only that, we can look at what has been happening over the past couple of days. Over a single 24-hour period, we would have had 11 fatal shootings by the police. And whilst I do not propose to enter into discussions as it relates to the particular of the incidents, the various and several 11 incidents, I think just by virtue of the number alone, that alone should give you an indication that, of course, there are human rights issues that arise. The fact that there were no recorded body-worn cameras in use in any of those 11 fatal shootings that took place within the 24-hour period, then that tells you that, of course, there are human rights issues at play. So for the minister...
Go ahead, complete your thoughts.
So
for the minister,
against that background, to take a view and utter those words, clearly it leads one to think that perhaps the minister is detached from reality.
All right, I'm quickly running out of time, but the minister says there are institutional safeguards in place. He cited the public defender, Indicom, all of these institutional safeguards, part of the architecture to protect the rights of citizens. You're not buying that argument, are you?
Absolutely not. The fact that those institutions exist doesn't mean that we don't have a problem. I mean, we have prisons, but it doesn't mean that people aren't going around murdering persons. The fact that an institution exists does not prevent certain occurrences. And so against that background, then I clearly cannot agree with the minister that the mere fact that those state agencies or institutions are in existence goes to show that there is no human rights issue. It doesn't follow. It's a non sequitur.
You only have 3 seconds for this one, so I'm shooting it quickly to you. The final appellate court in Jamaica, your thoughts on it, CCJ or final court here in Jamaica?
The People's National Party has always been very strident in the view that our final court of appeal should in fact be the CCJ. We already contribute financially towards the setting up of the Caribbean Court of Justice. We have judges who have an exemplary record. We have even a Jamaican judge, at least one Jamaican judge serving currently as a judge of the
CCJ it is. And before my studio has been, my newsroom tells me that you were in court today. Do you mind updating the country on what happened? You pled guilty to some charges?
Yes, not a problem. I can now speak about it because the matter has actually been resolved in court, so it's no longer sub judice. What had happened is that earlier this year, my driver would have been stopped by the police. At the time, it was noted that the cover note had expired, so he had the old documents. The truth is we had actually paid for the insurance. We had